Page 156, exercise 11.6. Here they're talking about dovetailing and overlapping the hands. This is where the hands are working close together and doing this, and they can get in each other's way, and it's just have a ball. It's just page 157 is a very common piece by C.P.E. Bach. He's one of the sons of J.S. Bach, and you can tell by the stems in the music which hand is playing what, and the hands are just every which way. So it's like at the beginning of this, the right hand's playing the first note, and then the left hand, and then the right hand, and then the left hand, left, right hand. And so the hands are just doing this all throughout. Now you get down to the third line. Look at those things. Just two. These are not two-note slurs. Don't play them. They're all connected. And you just work it out like the first two beats. Play them over and over and over until you can get them connected. Then the next two beats. Then the next measure is. Now look at the bottom of the page. Last two measures. We have these. They tell you LH over. That means put the left hand on top. I mean, if you were to experiment with this and trying to do the left hand on the bottom, it doesn't work because your hands are in the way. So you have to do left hand on top anyway. So, and this is soft. I'm not doing loud and soft, but, and then you get loud. You get the same kind of stuff over on page 158 when you finish the song. There's the rest of the song there. Look at measure 21. So the first beat, the first note in each beat is left hand, and then the right hand does the rest. The trick here is to make them rhythmically even. 1 E and 2 E and 1 and then when you can do that, you can gradually speed it up. When you get to 26, they say right hand under, which, in case you're wondering, is the same thing as left hand over, which is what they said before. So it's still here. Yeah, I like that fingering. Now, this is not a beginner's piece. This is a late, if you play it up to tempo, a late intermediate piece. It really helps if you know the scale for C minors in the key of C minor, and if you know the arpeggios. If I've uploaded the arpeggio files, by now do those arpeggios for 3 flats. The key, the key signature of 3 flats for C minor, or the arpeggios of you just do them, and they will help in like measure 30 in the right hand. Because these is just a chord, and they're different versions of the extended chord. And then you change chord, but they have to be smooth and even. They have to rhythmically. Now I can give you ideas on how to speed that up and different things you can do, but other people who have done YouTube tutorial videos, I've already pointed out ways of learning to play these things, like working out these things to speed them up. That is, adjusting the rhythm. It's like here, this type thing. A couple teachers pointed out to me this is a technique you can use to learn to play these things. But I have found the most effective for me is to simply use the metronome slowly and deliberately, and I'm going to drop the wrist and accent every beat. And I do that through the whole piece, and then gradually speed it up until eventually I get to where I'm accenting every other note, and I drop the wrist on every other note. and speed it up a little more, and eventually I can get to where I'm dropping the wrist on every 4 notes and just accent in this case on the beat. And then I just have to speed that up. And so that's the technique I've used. It's a very slow and deliberate technique, but it has worked for me very well. Now, there's no pedal in this piece. Do this piece on a harpsichord quite well. The dynamics, follow the dynamics in here if you want, because you get to louds and softs and louds and soft going back and forth. It helps the piece. As far as the tempo goes, they say prestissimo, which is pretty much just as fast as you can play it. It's faster than presto. I mean, you don't get really faster than prestissimo. This is the first arrangement I've seen. This isn't really an arrangement. This is actually the way the piece was written. But this is the first edition, should I say, where they've used that tempo. Usually it's like vivace or presto or allegro or something similar. The idea is just play it fast. How fast can you play it and keep it even and controlled? And that's your prestissimo thing. So have fun with this piece and really try not to run over the hands too much. But it's good practice when the hands are and you're doing this. So I would recommend the piece at least in a slow tempo, even if you have to I mean, if I do it at a quarter note equals 60, which is very slow, you get a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a blah. Etc. Kind of fun. But if you need to slow it down even real slow, you can put the metronome on a slow speed and say a beat equals 1/8 notes. So then you're just playing 2 notes per beat. So it's like here. Start it to get you an idea, because it moves around. Your hands are constantly moving around, and you'll have to be looking down, and eventually you'll get a feel where you don't have to look down, but learning it, you got to go slow. Maybe you just do 1/16 note per beat on the metronome. I would play the whole thing legato as best I can if you're going to do that. The 16th note, play them legato. Etc. Now notice I try and get my hand where it goes before I need to play the note if I can, if I've got time. Sometimes I don't. But when you get down to measure 7, it's here. Etc. Notice they did not put in a quarter or a 16th note rest in the left and the bottom staff on measure 9. It's just understood they're following the pattern. So the first note in the beat is in the upper staff, so they didn't do anything in the, I mean, it's like they're using one staff, but they're kind of sharing it between the 2 staves until you get down to measures like measure 14, and then it takes 2 stabs. Now you get down to the bottom of page 157. You see these little triangle wedge things underneath the bottom staff notes? I have problems with those. Different editions will have different articulation and dynamics and so forth. I'm not quite sure what to make of those in this piece. Some people will play this and interpret that left hand as more or less staccato throughout. I don't know that that's really what they want, because it sounds to me like in measure 13, if you'd play regular 16th notes for a full beat, it actually, I think, sounds a little better. And then in the next one, if you'd play those eighth notes pretty much a full beat value, I think it sounds better. And so forth. But some people will play them as staccato. So I leave it up to you. Look up that symbol and see what it means, and you can experiment in your interpretation. How do you like to do it? You get those markings again over on page 158, but I'll let you explore those and see what you think. There are recordings of this available. You can go listen to those and see how the different people will interpret it. I would recommend you listen to multiple people play it, because they will play it differently, and it's interesting to hear the different ways they play it. Now on page 159 they talk about Black-Key Arpeggios. People will interpret this differently, so we have to be careful here. They're referring to a Black-Key Arpeggio as any arpeggio that involves one or more black keys on a piano. Other people will interpret Black-Key Arpeggios as arpeggios that involve only black keys, no white keys at all. And there's a few, and they're tricky to play because the black keys on a piano are narrow, and it's easy to miss them, and it's easy to slide off, and when you start going, you gotta be exact with your fingers or you're gonna miss them, and it gets interesting. And I go into it in a lot of detail in my arpeggio videos, if I ever get them uploaded, if they're not uploaded yet, but they will explain a lot more. But here, they're just talking about Black-Key Arpeggios as at least one black key's involved. Their first example is the B-flat major, which has two flats, which means there's going to be at least two black keys involved. And they give the example there, but I disagree with their fingering, because I was taught in college, I pretty much insisted on it, that when I start an arpeggio that starts on a black key, that I was required to use the same finger I would use on that note if it were in the middle of the arpeggio somewhere. For instance, right here, this B-flat major in the right hand, well, the fingering for it is thumb on the D, 2 on the F, and 4 on the B-flat. That's the chord involved, and that's the fingering for that chord. Therefore, if I start that on a B-flat, which I would use fourth finger, not second finger. So I would end it on fourth finger. I was required to do that in college. I was not allowed to use second finger on the first one. Now, when you're in a piece of music and you're playing it and may do this, yeah, you probably use second finger. But for the work in the arpeggios themselves, no. In the left hand, that doesn't really, well, here, you're starting on third finger, because the fingering is here, so it's here, and when I get to the top and want to turn around, I was required to use third finger because the third finger plays that note. They're showing second finger because it's closer to it. I just want to point that out because some teachers teach one way and other teachers teach another. On the E-flat major, it's the same thing. The fingering in the right hand would be here, but you're starting on E-flat. Well, the fourth finger is playing the E-flat, therefore I would start on fourth finger. I was required to do that. In the left hand, the fingering is here. The thumb's playing the white note, as point is. And the second finger plays the E-flat, so I would start on second finger. I'll do that anyway, so it works out on that one. Don't really know what they're after here because I prefer you use my arpeggio videos to work on arpeggios, and they are important, and it will help you tremendously if you could learn to play these arpeggios. In the videos, you do the beginner part first, and once you have that down and you're playing a little more music, then do the intermediate level, And then if you get to the advanced level, by all means do the advanced, because that will really help you. Just make sure you do the tremolo exercises that I give. And the tremolo exercise, it's like a trill exercise, but the notes are further apart. And here on the B flat, over here, I would simply alternate those two notes. It's drilling that feel into my hands. Etc. up and down, and then of course the left hand. Do that first, and that will help your hands and your muscle memory to kind of get an idea of what it feels like to play these notes, and then you can start trying to put them together. Because then when you do the arpeggio, it will be a little easier. A little easier for you. Now, if you're only going to do an arpeggio for one octave, you just as well just use a broken this fingering. You don't need to do any of that fancy stuff. Kind of depends on in the piece what came before it, what goes on afterward, but usually you just do that, or the E flat. Now I'm including this Black-Key Arpeggio information in this video because it's the end of the unit. I didn't want to devote a video just to that, so because there's no exercise associated with it, so there you go.